Okay, hello. Welcome. I'm Jesse, Public Affairs Coordinator at CJSF, and today I'm going to show you how to edit together a show using Audacity, or whatever audio editing program you want, but I'm going to focus on Audacity for now. I am using a Mac with the latest operating system, Catalina, and that has created a couple issues with Audacity. It's kind of technical, but basically Audacity at first won't even work and then just doesn't really record properly if you're using Macintosh operating system 10.15 or later. There's a workaround that you can do. It seems pretty technical, but is actually relatively simple once you do it. And basically what we're trying to accomplish is, so I'm in the security and privacy settings here in the system preferences, and you can see that I've got a list of all the apps that have access to my microphone, and on here you don't see Audacity. And we want to get Audacity onto there, but because of the new operating system, you can't do it through the general way you would do it here. So what we got to do is go in sort of through the back end. So if you're recording on Windows, you can just ignore this whole thing and skip ahead to when we start the audio editing. But if you're on a newer Mac, you might have to do this first. So the first thing to do is open the terminal window, which you can do. You can go through the Finder, you go Applications, Utilities, Terminal, and double click on that, or you can just click in your Spotlight search and search for terminal. And it'll be slow for me because I'm recording this and doing 100 things all at once. But there you go. Just click there and it'll open up and you'll get this little window. And then you want to just type in this message here. open/application/audacity.app/contents/macOS/Audacity. You can get that text here or here, and I'll link this in the video description as well. Anyway, you do that, you click enter. You see I've done it 3 times. And the first time you do it, it'll run, and then it'll open Audacity, and it'll ask you if you want to grant it access to the microphone. At that point, you click yes, and that'll create an exception, which you'll see is actually shown here as terminal, because it's the process that we've given this permission to is the terminal opening an application. Anyway, that's the workaround to be able to send audio through Audacity and use Audacity on a new Catalina Mac. Anyway, on to actually making your radio show. So I will have these instructions linked in the video description below as well. But this is just a basic outline of the steps without a ton of detail as to how to do each of those steps, and that's what I'm for. So the first thing you're going to do to make your show is make your DJ Land playlist. Anytime you make a show, you should be making your playlist first before you start your show so that it's all ready to go. And let me just pull up my playlist here. Nope. Just here. Where did it go? Oh, this is embarrassing. There it is. Right there. So I got my playlist here. It's all filled out. I got all my tags, everything ready to go. I'm actually using yesterday's jambalaya because I already did this show. So I've really already planned this show. But you would start from scratch, make your show, pick all your songs, and then generally outline and script it. So what you're going to want to have a plan going into before you're recording, where your breaks are going to be, what you're going to say in each of the breaks, so you can get a general idea for how long those breaks are going to be. And you're just going to build out the whole hour of your show based on your songs, where you want to talk, where you're going to put your PSAs in, and all of that, etc. So just before you start your show, have this ready to go and know what your show is going to be so that you're not sort of building it on the fly. The next thing you're going to do after you have created your play sheet, written your outline and script, is you're going to compile all your audio. So instead of having files all over the place in 100 different places and trying to draw them all into Audacity, just put them all in one location. You can see here I've got the music for all of my there we go, the music, all the files of the songs I'm going to play, and then I've also got all my traffic. So traffic is anything pre-recorded, the PSAs, station identifications, show promos, your intro and outro. So I'm going to get all of that and put it in one place. And if I had any interview clips or whatever, I would also put them in the same place. And you see I've created a folder for this show, and then subfolders for each of my things. How you organize it is up to you. Generally, the more organized it is, the easier it'll be to operate. These items of traffic, these audio files, the IDs, PSAs, show promos, etc. You can get those from the CJSF Dropbox, or you can get them through Plex. And so Plex is the system that CJSF is currently using to make our digital playlist available to programmers. Currently, if you sign up for an account through Ricky, CJSF MUSC at sfu.ca, you can get an account that will let you go in and look at all the music and stream it eventually. Boop-a-doop-a-doo. Maybe turn the music on. There we go. Right. You can go through. But then there's also IDs, PSAs, all of your intros and outros. Now, with this account, you see there's only really the option to stream, which isn't ideal or even really useful if we're trying to put together a show ahead of time. So you can download these from the CJSF Dropbox, or if you get in touch with Ricky, he can give you access to the admin account for this. I'll just hop over there, secret password. And from here, I can actually download the tracks themselves. So here, Cruel Radiant, the Blooming Season song that I'm going to play, I can actually download the file. And I can do that with the PSAs, anything really. But so I could go into Studio 6 here and then download a PSA to use, download file. I'll start downloading. It'll ask me if I want to save it, and it'll save. This automatically goes to my downloads. And yeah, so I have, before I did this video, I went ahead and, as you've seen, put together all of my music and traffic into 2 folders, so I don't need to go in and download something each time I need to use it. So the second main step is to get all of your stuff together. If you were to be recording this show, either broadcasting live or recording live to tape, there's another video, a couple other videos of me doing that that involve using a plugin called Black Hole. For PC, there's one called Voice Meter that allows you to stream audio through your computer and record and or broadcast it in real time. That's not the point of this video, but if you want to do it that way, that's another way to do things. Let's go back to our thing. Okay, so as I said, we're compiling our audio. We've got all our music. Oh, if you have the music on CDs, you can also rip the audio from the CD onto your computer instead of downloading it from Plex or wherever. and you're going to just put all of your audio in one easy to manage location that can be suborganized as much or as little as you want, but I recommend more. Now that we've got all our audio and all of our planning done, right? We've got our DJ Land play sheet. We know where we're going to stop and start. We can go in and record our voiceovers, right? And if you're just getting started or you're not entirely confident, it's good to maybe write a script or some bullet point notes to get you through. I'm an old bro, so I am going to just give you a rough example of what this might look like. So for the purposes of this, I'm just going to record, let's see. So I would have a break after song 3. I'd have a break in between songs 6 and 7. And then I'm going to take a break here between 8 and 9. And then again here. And then I'm going to record a wrap up. So I'm going to have, let's see, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bits that I need to record. And I can actually record those all as one track. So now that I know what I'm going to record, I'm going to go in and record it, right? Seems simple. I'm going to open Audacity. I have it open already. You can, if you're opening it for the first time, you can open it through Terminal, like we went over at the beginning. Or if you're using Windows, you can just open it and run it. The first thing we're going to do now that we're recording is set the recording input. So you can see here, and the interface is slightly different on Windows and Mac, but it's very similar. You're going to have here, beside the microphone icon, is where you pick what your mic input is. Mine is the Rode NT USB, because that's the microphone I'm using. But yours might be, if you're using a microphone, it could be if you're using a laptop, you could be using the built-in microphone. You might have a different USB microphone that shows up differently. You might be using a USB audio capture that has a regular microphone plugged into it. Regardless, you have to set this to whatever you want to record from. Makes sense, right? And then your output is probably just going to be your built-in output. Because I'm recording this video, I've got a special sound device working so that you can hear both my voice and the audio from Audacity. Okay. So I've got my microphone set up. If you want to test to make sure that it is working, you can click to start monitoring up here, and you'll see, I don't want to do that because I'm getting the sound of my voice looped back through, but you can see it's picking stuff up. So I'm going to turn that off. And so now I'm basically ready to go. And what I do is I click the big red record button. And hello. You can see here that it is recording. And we're good to go. So I'm just going to go in and get started. You can navigate away from Audacity and it'll keep recording. That's nice, you see. So if you have your script in Firefox or Google Docs or whatever, you can have it up here, or if you're just going from your play sheet, you can jump back and forth. So I would do my intro. So you're listening to Jambalaya. Thanks. Let's try that over. Hey, welcome to Jambalaya on CJSF 90.1 FM Burnaby, campus community radio from Simon Fraser University, where we broadcast from the unceded ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, Coquitlam, and Tsleil-Waututh. I'm Jesse Wensloff, and today on Jambalaya, I have a bunch of music to share with you that comes from the CJSF playlist. I am going to share some stories about life during quarantine and talk about video production. Who knows? Let's get right into it. It is spring, so the first band I want to play is Blooming Season. This is their song Cruel Radiant from the album Living Feeling. I feel pretty good about that one, but I might want to record a couple takes. Up next is Blooming Season. This track, Cruel Radiant, from their new record, Living Feeling. A couple different options in there. But then I'm going to move on to my next break, and I can just continue the same recording, maybe just leave a little blank space as a visual note. Imminent by Suggested Friends here on Jambalaya on CJSF 90.1 FM. Before that, you heard Median by Tummy Ache, and we kicked that set off with Cruel Radiant by Blooming Season. I'm Jesse. This is Jambalaya on CJSF, broadcasting remotely. Kind of cool. Anyway, coming up next is some more rock music. This is Callous Standard by Jaunt. Wait a second. And that was No Wrong by King of Foxes from the new record Salt and Honey. Really love that new record. That's the only song that's sort of R&B hip-hoppy like that one was. The rest are very rock-oriented. So anyway, check it out. Something that is R&B and hip-hop oriented is this next set of songs. We got Black Qualls by Thundercat. And on and on. And so I would go through and record the voiceover for each section. But I'm just going to do part of the show so you get the idea. So I've recorded my voiceover. I'm going to stop recording. That might be problematic. I wonder where the gaps are. So I'm just going to go in and get started. Nothing serious. Okay, cool. So here we are. Here's my audio. Obviously here I got a little hot, a little close to the microphone. You're going to want to watch out for that. There are some things we can do, but once it's recorded, it's recorded. If I were doing a actual full-on episode of my show, I'd probably re-record that. Take some time, but just to show you the quick and dirty, as it were, I'm gonna gloss over that and pretend that it's okay, and we'll just work with it. So I've recorded my audio. You can see that is the first part, record voiceover, connect mic to computer, choose the audio input, which we did up here, click record your audio, and then push stop. Simple, right? Now that we have the whole show's voiceover, let's imagine, right? I only did a couple breaks there, but I would record the whole thing. I'm going to go through and edit my voiceover. So I know that I talked a little bit at the beginning and it wasn't really related to the voiceover. It was just me talking to you. So let's see. Navigate away from Audacity. So if you have your script from your play sheet, you're listening to Jambalaya on CJSF. Right, so I know I started about here. And before I get into any of the actual editing, I should just go over tools really quickly. In Audacity, there are 4 sort of 5 main tools, and then one that combines multiple tools into one. Your primary tool is the selection tool. It gives you this cursor that looks very familiar, lets you highlight and select specific portions, either to delete, like I'm going to do here. I'm going to select all of this by just clicking and dragging, and then I'm going to push delete on my keyboard, and it deletes it. Or I could take this section that's too loud and apply an effect to just this selection, right? By highlighting with the selection tool, then going to the effect menu, amplify. I want to make this a little bit quieter, let's say. Right? And it only happened to the part that I had selected. It also, you can use the selection tool just to move the playhead or the cursor to the spot that you want it to start playback. That was No Wrong by King of Foxes. Right. The second most common tool is the time shift tool, and that lets you actually move tracks around, move pieces of audio around. And once we've split this up into multiple parts and are moving different audio files around to combine it all, that'll obviously be important, is this time shift tool. I'm realizing I did jump ahead on the selection tool and missed a key point. Another reason you might want to move the cursor around is if you want to split an audio file into multiple parts. And to do that, you put the cursor where you want to split, and then you go Edit, Clip Boundaries, Split. Or on an Apple, you can go Command I. On PC, I believe it's just Control I. We'll split this piece of audio, and now you can see if I go to the time shift tool, I can actually move these two pieces independently of each other. Handy, right? So what I'm going to do here is just go through really quickly and break my segments into parts using the quick selection and time shift tool, and then I'll show you some of the other tools. So here I am. I believe this is the end of me talking. So the first band I want to play is Blooming Season. This is their song Cruel Radiant from the album Living Feeling. Cool. There we go. And then I'm once again going Command I, getting that split, and then breaking it apart. Listen to this. Pretty good about that one, but I might want to record a couple takes. Up next is Blooming Season. This track, Cruel Radiant, from their new... So I did a second take there, remember? So I'm going to go in. I'm going to, again, split it, Command I. And I know that it ends here. It's a visual note. Oh, no, it didn't end because I kept talking. From their new record, Living Feeling. A couple different options in there. So I'm going to want to break that up there by, once again, Edit, Clip Boundaries, Split. And now I'm just going to move these things around to separate them. I know that this is just me talking to you, right? I feel pretty good about that one, but I might want to record a couple takes. So I'm going to delete that by highlighting it and pushing delete. You'll see when I did that, I'm going to jump back by going undo. Apple Z, very, very useful. You can jump forward and backwards several steps to sort of see if you like things one way or another, or just to fix mistakes, which happen. But you can see here, all my audio is here. I've got this selected. Once I delete it, all of the audio is going to jump back in time to the left, because it doesn't just delete the audio clip, it deletes the whole space on the timeline. So just something to be aware of when you're working in Audacity is that if you've got a bunch of stuff all meticulously lined up, deleting somewhere can shift everything around. So just be mindful. And now I'm going to continue with the editing of my voiceover. But then I'm going to move on to leave a little blank space as a visual note. So know that that is, again, just me talking to you. Get rid of that. Once again, it's going to jump all over. Imminent by Suggested Friends here on Jambalaya, CJSF 90.1 FM. Before that, you heard Median by... And if you click anywhere in the timeline, it just autoplays from that point. I'm Jesse. This is Jambalaya on CJSF, broadcasting remotely. Kind of cool. Anyway, coming up next is some more rock music. This is Callous Standard by John. Okay, so I know, wait a second, it's more me talking, so I'm going to delete that. And I know that this is probably the end of this part. By Thundercat. And on and on. And okay, So from there, that's just me talking to you. So I have 3 different vocal parts here with a second take for the end of this vocal part. So let's actually edit this into this just as a final demonstration of how to use the selection tool and adding and deleting and cutting and pasting to make things edit together nicely. So I know that this starts. Up next is Blooming Season. This track, Cruel Radiant, from their new record, Living Feeling, is just about the next track, right? So band I want to play is Blooming Season. This is their song, Cruel Radiant. It is spring, so the first band I want to play is Blooming Season. This is their song, Cruel Radiant, from the album Living Feeling. This track, Cruel Radiant, from their new record, Living Feeling. This is their song. Okay, so I'm going to take from about here to here, and I'm just going to delete this whole section here so that this and this gets smushed together. But I want to make sure that I'm being precise, and so this is where the zoom controls come in. So you can use the zoom tool to get yourself a magnifying glass, and then you can click, and one click at a time you'll zoom in or out. You can also use the zoom in and zoom out buttons here to zoom in and out. And there's also a couple other buttons here. One, fit selection to width, so that'll actually zoom so that what I have selected fills the entire screen. So for really minute control and just really minute adjustment of the boundaries, you'll see if I go back to the cursor selection tool and then go right to the edge, I get a finger, and then I can just pull it so I know it starts right there, and I know that this just goes right to the perfect moment. Then when I push delete, you'll see it's going to slide all over together, and this is what it sounds like. Yeah, let's get right into it. It is spring, so the first band I want to play is Blooming Season. This track, Cruel Radiant, from their new record, Living Feeling. Pretty seamless, right? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go through each of my voiceover clips, however many you have for your show. I've only got 3 here, obviously. And you're just going to trim the ends, make sure that you've got the right takes for everything, combine some takes if you need to. And if you split a clip, you can actually just click back on the boundary and it'll make it as new again. Instant replay. See? Pretty cool. Okay, so I've got my voiceover. And again, we're imagining that I'm doing a whole full hour show. But here I've got probably 20 to 30 minutes worth of radio once you factor in the music and PSAs and everything, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do, now that I've got my vocals, I could do a little bit of editing, or of effecting at this point on my vocals. I could compress them, and that can be a good idea, but most of the time you want to just focus on making sure that you're recording good quality vocals as opposed to trying to fix them after the fact. And if you're recording from home right now due to COVID-19, having a slightly less than perfect mic vocal quality is totally understandable. So just work with what you got. If you want to play around with the compressor, or I wouldn't try noise reduction because it usually just makes things sound weird. That kind of thing, you can, but it's a long rabbit hole, and it's very easy to make things sound worse than they did in the first place. So for now, we're just going to leave the vocals the way that they are, and we're going to go back to our instructions. Let's see. Editing. Effects. No. And then there's a couple things you can do. At this point, I haven't saved my project, so I should probably do that. I'm going to save project, and we're going to call this Once the Beach Ball Finishes Spinning. Anyway, so I'm going to save this, obviously, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, here we go. Go desktop, radio, COVID, and I'm just going to call this one Jambalaya. Now we're saved. Depending on your audio editor, the software you're using, you might want to export at this point. I'm just going to create one big thing in Audacity. As long as you're saving along the way, you should be okay to do this as well. So now I'm going to import my audio. And there are a couple different ways of doing this. And one of them is just simple drag and drop. That's why I have everything in my prearranged folders. So I could just take everything and drag it in, and you see it's getting ready to do that, all 14. I don't want to do that right now. I'm only using part of these for our demonstration, but also loading in 14 files all at once to Audacity is going to overload it a little bit. You can even see if I just add, and I'll pick a bunch of little files. If I drag and drop these in, you can see it's gonna process them all. It gives me a new track for each piece of audio, which is not super useful and very tough to keep track of, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to delete a bunch of these. I'll just delete them all. So the alternative drag and drop is import audio. So file, import audio, and then you can pick a file, navigate, upload things one at a time. Let's see, desktop, music. Obviously, this is not my primary method, but so I could go in, Jambalaya, music, pick a file, open it. And it'll take its time, it'll import it, and I'll get the same end result where it adds a new track. Right? So it's just quicker to add things in one at a time and to just drag and drop them. So I'm going to start. I know that the first thing I need is my show intro. The other advantage to doing it this way one at a time is that you can then sort of build it piece by piece as opposed to having everything all in here and then having to sort it out after the fact. Just helps organize it. So the first thing I need is my Jambalaya intro. So I'm going to drag and drop that in. Take a second. Cool. So there's my Jambalaya intro. I'm going to mute this track just to listen to it. Right, there it is. At this point, I'm focused mostly on just general placement. So I know this is my first track, my first vocal track that has my intro and my introduction of the first song that I'm going to play. So I'm just going to line it up visually, approximately where it looks like is good. And then, you know, why not? I'll give it a listen. Let's see.
You are now tuned in to the Jambalaya here on CJSF 90.1 FM, broadcasting from Burnaby, BC.
Hey, welcome to Jambalaya on CJSF. Pretty smooth, right? Depending on your show and your intro, you might want to sort of have this fade down while you talk underneath it, or talk over top it, sorry. And we'll get into that with the fading and mixing and stuff. Right now, we're mostly just getting like a rough placement of where everything goes. So I had mentioned with the zoom tools, the zoom to selection, fit selection to width. The other option is fit project to width, which is basically just zooms you out all the way, and it's super useful just for getting a bird's eye view of your whole project. Right now, I'm going to use the time shift tool to give myself a bunch of space because I know that I'm bringing in 3 songs after this one and 3 songs after this one and a few songs after this one. So I'm going to need a lot more real estate. Audacity, unfortunately, there's not a really simple way. Oh, there we go. I'm just going to zoom out all the way, and I know that I'm probably looking somewhere around there, right? So my next step is I got to figure out what my first song is, which I should remember, but because I'm all over the place, yes, Cruel Radiant by Blooming Season. So I am going to go back to my music folder, and then find Cruel Radiant, which is here, and I'm going to just drag it in. It's going to take a minute. And you can see, once again, it's given me a brand new track and has started it right at 0. So obviously I'm going to want to move this around. For now, I'm going to keep basically 3 tracks. I'm going to have 1 track for my vocals. I'm going to have 1 track for any PSAs or IDs, traffic. And then I'm going to have 1 track for all my music. And so I said that I'm just doing the rough layout first. So I'm going to do that. There's my first track. The second track is then Median by Tummy Ache, and then Imminent by Suggested Friends. So let's go back to bring in Tummy Ache by Median. See that. And then Imminent. So as you can see, once again, I've now got extra tracks for each of these. And the best way to keep this under control is just to delete as you go. But it is nice to have 2 different music tracks so that you can do a little bit of crossfading and sync things up nicely. So I'm going to use the time shift tool to again click and drag this up into our first music track, and then I'm just going to delete the one that's left over so that I'm left sitting with vocal track, PSA, pre-recorded audio track, music tracks. I am going to fine-tune the placement later, but for now, I know I've got my music, and then I got my next voiceover clip. And you can see that this yellow line that shows up, that is sort of a built-in feature in Audacity to help you line things up roughly. You're always going to want to listen after the fact because you don't want it to be too rough a transition. There we go. Okay, so now I know I've got my first 3 songs. Let's zoom out all the way. Let's see if I can't get a vertical zoom. No? Okay. So now I am going to bring in my second set of songs, which begins with Jaunt and then goes to King of Foxes, right? So I'm going to bring in Jaunt. And once again, this is going to give me a new track, so I'm going to bring it up into my music track. I'm going to delete close the old track that it created, and then just line this up with the beginning of that approximately. Then bring in my next track, which is Girl by Girl Ray. Importing once again down here, so I'm going to drag it to its approximate position, delete the extra track, and then I'm going to bring in you know what, it's probably time for a PSA at this point, or at least a station ID, so I'm going to go into traffic. Let's do a show promo. So this is my show promo for I Come From the Mountain. That's going to go, it's going to insert itself at the very beginning in a new track. And then I'm just going to click and drag it up into the track we've designated for traffic. Delete the old one. And then I'm going to make sure this lines up with the end of this track. And then I'm going to bring in the final track of this set, which is No Wrong by King of Foxes. And once again, it's back down here. I'm going to bring it up into the right track, get the timing about right, and then close the old track. Then at the end of, except that I want it to sync up with my show promo and not this song, right? Then I would have my last bit of vocals here. And then if we imagine that this was the ending of my show, I could then have my outro, which I'm going to pretend is the jambalaya intro. Bring it to about the right spot and then drag it up. You can bring it up in stages too, like I can sort of hopscotch my way up. That's more traffic. But this is probably going to want to be sort of underneath, so to speak, because we're going to fade it out, right? Okay, so at this point, if I zoom all the way out, and I want this to be smaller. There we go. Okay. I'm just going to make everything a reasonable size so we can see all of our tracks all at once. This is the last extra jambalaya track that was given to us. So you can see here that I've got my intro, my first vocals, my first song, my second song, my third song, my second vocals, fourth song, fifth song, show promo, sixth song, outro, final vocals. We'll pretend this is a half-hour show. At this point, you know, if I go through and listen to my transitions, they're going to be pretty choppy. You know, not too bad, but there's some definite gaps there. What you want to do is always start working from the beginning of your show when you start doing your fine-tuning, because of the way Audacity works, any deleting or shifting around you do will affect stuff later on, as opposed or will affect stuff that you've done. So you just want to start over here, make sure that this first transition is solid. Is Blooming Season. This track, Cruel Radiant, from their new record, Living Feeling. Yeah, pretty good. But if I wanted that to start playing while I was talking, which is something you can do if the song's got an intro, then I would use our other tool, the envelope tool. And for here, it definitely helps to be able to see a little bit better. But the envelope tool lets you draw an envelope. And in this case, the envelope affects the amplitude or volume. So it's hard to see here because it's blue, but there is, once I shift into this tool, sort of a second set of blue lines that pop up around the top and bottom. And if you click on that line, it creates a point. And if you click again somewhere else, it creates a second point. And then if you drag one of those points, you see it creates a curve. And you can move that point along or add additional points to make the curve more complex if you want. But so now if you listen, this is talk about video production, who knows? Yeah, let's get right into it. It is spring, so the first band I want to play is Blooming Season. This track, Cruel Radiant, from their new record, Living Feeling. So that actually worked out pretty well timing-wise. But, you know, I might have wanted it to stay quiet for just a little bit longer, so I can adjust the curve there. And you can fine-tune it as much as you want. Same thing goes at the beginning or end to crossfade. If I wanted these two songs to fade in and out of each other, I could line it up and then just do a quick little add some of this, add a curve here, and we'll get a crossfade. This is probably too long, but let's see. It's not bad, right? We could, though, just also, I'm just going to jump through here and undo a bunch of Command Z. We could just have that sync up like that so that it ends. Right, up to you. Whatever you think sounds better. You're the DJ. So I'm going to go through, just make sure that my timing all works out. A lot of songs will sort of start and begin with quiet and loud parts, so you can just sort of... Right, I'm actually just going to make it so that the song actually kind of kicks in right at the end there. Let's see what that sounds like. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. Yeah, so once again, I'm just going to go through here. Obviously, as I've shifted things over on the left, my timing no longer works out perfectly, so I'm going to shift this over, see what that sounds like. Imminent by Suggested Friends here on Jambalaya. Pretty good. Then I'm going to drag this over here. Next is some more rock music. This is Callous Standard by John. And you know what? Listening to this, I can see that there's no vocals until there, so maybe I can do a little bit of a fade in, because why not? Everybody likes a little bit of a fade in. Once again, I've gone to my envelope tool. I have created one point at the end of my curve and one point at the beginning, and then I've just done this nice little fade. Kind of cool. Anyway, coming up next is some more rock music. This is Callous Standard by John. Yeah, I liked it. So we're going to go back here. I'm going to shift back to my time shift tool, get these synced up. As you can see, I really like to sync things up, but it's up to you. That worked out pretty nicely, I think. Okay, so now we've got our PSA up here, our show promo for I Come From the Mountain. And I'm just going to want to make sure this syncs up right with here, as opposed to here, the end of the file, right? So I'm just going to drag it over and see where... That should be pretty good. Let's see what that sounds like. Great. This is a very dreamy sounding thing. I'm going to go back to my time shift, drag this over. I know that this song starts kind of weird and dreamy, so I'm just going to make a little overlap there. Let's see what this sounds like.
1 p.m. to 2 p.m.
Yeah, that was nice. Okay, so now I've got to my last segment. I've got my vocals here, and then my show outro, which, you know, if it was, I'm just going to pretend here, do some make-believe. Why don't we just use the same I Come From the Mountain, just as an example. Boop-a-doo, back at the beginning, drag it over here, bring it up and up. So I'm just going to use this as an example. If, I should delete this, of course. If I had music that I wanted to speak on top of, like if I had a show outro that started and then I wanted to continue to talk over top of it, which I do with the Vancouver mixtape. There we go. That's a good example. Mixtape. Okay, there we go. That's better than this silly thing. Oops. Okay, so this is the outro to my show. And what I would do after my last track, I'm going to go all the way to the end here. Oops. Is I would sync this up here so that it goes. That was No Wrong by King of Foxes. But obviously, the music's too loud, the vocals aren't loud enough, the timing's not right, etc. So I'm going to move this into the appropriate position. And then I'm going to use the envelope tool to make a couple points. Here I'm going to need 4 at least. 1 here, sort of 2 at the beginning, and then 2 at the end. And that's because I'm going to make a down curve to make it quieter, and then it's going to come back up at the end. So this is really rough, but let's just see what that sounds like. That was No Wrong by King of Foxes from the new record Salt and Honey. Really love that new record. That's the only song that's sort of R&B hip-hoppy like that one was. The rest are very rock-oriented. So anyway, check it out. Something that is R&B and hip-hop oriented is this next set of songs. We got Black Qualls by Thundercat. And then to fade out, I can either, once again, use the envelope tool and just do one of those down to 0, wherever you want it. Or I can end this where I want. Let's say I want it to go to 2830. Command I. And then I'm going to select this and delete it. And then I'm going to highlight, let's say 15 seconds. And go into Effect, Fade Out. Look at that. The almost imperceptible 15-second fade out. That's great. Anyway, so then I'm done, right? I've got my whole show. I'm going to zoom out to fit the project. You can also do Command F, Control F. And then there's a couple options. I can go File, Export as MP3, or File, Export Audio. And it'll ask me all these things. I'm going to save this as Jambalaya April, we'll say it's 23rd, even though it was yesterday's. Save. It'll give me some metadata that might populate automatically based on files you've added and dropped in. You can see mine's got all the metadata from the Vancouver mixtape theme, which is the first thing we dropped in. I'm just going to clear that for now because I don't need it. Okay. And then it'll take its time to do its thing. Probably would have been a good idea to save the project before I did all of this exporting, just to save yourself the ultimate heartbreak. But so it goes. I'm just going to show you the final product once this is done. But basically that's it. You organize and plan your show. You write/outline your script. You record your script in Audacity. You pick your audio input. You edit your audio, your voiceover, to remove any mistakes, combine any cuts that you want, separate your recording into multiple parts, into your different bits, essentially. And then you start to put it all together by adding your files in one at a time in order, deleting the extra tracks that come up every time you add another thing. And once you've got it pieced together roughly, you're going to go through and adjust the fine tuning and timing with the time shift tool, do some fade in and outs with the envelope tool, find out anywhere if there's music you want to talk over, you can use the envelope tool. And I've been pretty lucky. Most of my audio is relatively similar volume-wise. If I had really quiet vocals and I wanted to make them louder, I could use the effect tool, which you can do. When you have the time select tool, if you double-click on a clip, it'll just select the whole thing, or you can just manually click and drag. If I go effect, amplify, it'll actually automatically default to the most you can amplify, like the most you can increase the volume by, which is adjusting the amplification without peaking or clipping. It'll just automatically go there and you click OK. It does it automatically. You see it got loud right there. We'll go back, undo. And then if I were to do, once again, amplify, if I click this allow clipping button, I can actually make it get as loud as I want. And you see that it'll just totally like destroy it. Don't want that. But yeah, just good to know. I think my volume is pretty good just based on what we were listening to. But now we can find out. So I'm going to save, file, save project. I haven't done that in a while. And then I'm going to close. And make a new one. And now I am going to bring in the file that I just exported. Jambalaya, April 23rd, right? And just have a look-see. See what we got. It's always good after you produce something at home to give it a listen, give it a once-over. At the very least, a visual once-over, because you can tell a lot about it by just looking at it. But also, it's good to just listen through, make sure all your transitions are good, etc. So you can see, actually, my vocals are way quieter than the rest of the bits here. There is some internal variation within songs, but you can see from here, oh, that's actually a song. Perfect. I nailed it, just like I said I did. Never mind. But you can see this is generally pretty solid. There is this big gap here. Oh, because we had an extra file at the end that we didn't pay attention to. So what I would do here, that's why we double check. I can see really easily that there's about a minute of empty space here. That means no sound. And then this extra bit at the end. So I'm just going to highlight all of that, push delete to delete it. And then I'm going to save file. Oh, I can't save. I would have to export this again. So either I can export this, or I can go back to the previous session. Dum, 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 dum. Well, that's not good. Well, yoinks. Well, I guess then we'll just export this again. File, export, audio. Call it the master. So something weird happened there with my session, but we still have the audio file, which is good. Can't go back and make any changes, which is bad. But basically, once you've got your audio file at the end of your radio program, you're done. You upload that to Airtime or send it via Dropbox to myself or Robin, and yeah, that's it. So once again, the steps are linked in the description below. But if you have any questions, you can send an email to cjsfpa@sfu.ca, and I'll be happy to walk you through it. Cool. Thanks for watching. Let's just get this. No. Let's just see if opening it to fresh makes a difference. All right, so I'm just going to do a new window, and I'm going to bring in my brand new file, Jambalaya April 23rd master. And this is a spot again where if you wanted to play around with effects like a compressor or dynamics processing, that kind of thing, you can play around in here, but once again, it's very easy to make it sound worse than it does already. And everything that gets broadcast by CJSF goes through a compressor before it makes it to the airwaves anyway. So the amount of impact that you're actually having is potentially quite marginal. But you can see, here we go. We're good to go. Yeah, so I'm just going to have a listen, make sure this is okay, and then I'm going to upload it to Airtime, send it in, good to go. Yeah, thanks for watching. CJSF PA at sfu.ca if you have any questions, or follow the links in the description. Bye.